the way. We're now joined. We go from A&M to Clemson. Alexis Cubit, one of our favorites. The State newspaper covers Clemson at the State as well. And at Alexis_Cubit, C-U-B-I-T on Twitter. Alexis, thank you very much. Great to have you here and on the show. So last year, Clemson was pretty good, but they just struggled dramatically on offense. Is the offense going to be better this year?
That is the biggest question. I think it will be, just because I think they've learned a lot. I think guys have kind of got settled in. You obviously have a little bit of quarterback battle there. You have a new freshman coming in at wide receiver who unfortunately tore his ACL, but is hopefully going to be back by the fall. So you do have some new pieces. Obviously, you get back, the three biggest running backs that Dabo calls the three-headed monster. So I think you'll definitely see a much improved offense.
Alexis, the offensive line was surprisingly, for the first time in maybe a decade for Clemson, a weak spot. What have they done to address that?
Yeah, so the biggest thing for them was just health. Like, they could not get guys healthy. They get one back and another one gets injured. They get that guy back, another one tears his ACL. So it was just a lot of that was big. So I think in that they were able to kind of build up their depth with some of those younger guys. Marcus Tate was one of those guys that saw a little bit more playing time as a freshman, kind of thrown in there. Georgia was his first game. So, I mean, if that's not a trial by fire, I don't know what is. But, he got that experience. You have some redshirt freshmen that Dabo was really high on this year, and guys like Tristan Lee and Ryan Linthicum. So, and then you also bring in two mid-year enrollees, and Blake Miller and Colin Sadler. So they definitely have bulked up. And then, of course, the big thing is, will or won't Dabo go to the transfer portal for that O-line position? And according to him, they're looking into it. They're trying to find a guy in the portal from the O-line. So kind of be on portal watch for the next, I think, month or so is when he said they'd be looking to fill that position. So, but yes, I mean, they have a new, O-line coach in Thomas Austin who played at Clemson on the line. So you have a little bit of youth kind of in there. And so, yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see, where he can take them and how he can, get things back on track.
Alexis, that quarterback battle, I mean, obviously it was, kind of a tough season there at quarterback for DJ Uiagalelei. He's back. You'd think he's kind of the front runner, obviously, being back, but there's this, 5-star, sensational freshman there from Texas and Cade Klubnik, who, I know a lot of Clemson fans have to be excited to see more of on Saturday. So what is that anticipation level for folks to see a bit more of him? And how much of a competition is this really in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you guys got a front row to what Cade can do there, being so close in the area. But I think right now it's still DJ. I mean, Dabo tends to honor seniority. I think because DJ hasn't done anything crazy, it's his position. I mean, he's, a hard worker. Everybody's rooting for him. He's got the respect of his teammates. So I think right now, he's a front runner. Obviously, he has experience. And I don't know. I just think that those games his freshman year against Boston College and Notre Dame just hold so much weight. Last year, yeah, he kind of went through a sophomore slump. Things didn't go his way. But like Dabo said, it wasn't just all on him. Like, yes, he did make some bad throws and such, but I mean, receivers weren't necessarily helping him out either. And they didn't necessarily have as much experience as they had in, past years where they had in, a T. Higgins or an Amari Rogers or, those kind of guys. But I mean, that doesn't change the fact that Cade is still there. He's obviously still competing and definitely, learning a lot, especially as a mid-year enrollee. So he's getting a jump on things. But yeah, ironically, they're on different teams. So DJ is on the orange team, and then Cade is on the white team for the spring game this Saturday. So it's not like you'll have to wait. I mean, you're going to see them right away and see what Cade has to offer.
So Venables, Elliott, gone. So they have to replace them, which, that's part of what very elite programs and successful programs have to deal with. Any kind of interruption with that?
I don't think so. So the thing about Dabo is that, like, he talks about the reason why he doesn't particularly, quote unquote, care for the portal is because he runs a developmental program. Well, that extends to the coaching staff as well. I mean, you have Wes Goodwin, who, from the media outside world had never really heard of him, but, you know, he worked under Bruce Arians and, you know, had that NFL experience. He worked at Mississippi State, so he's got the SEC experience. And so now, you know, he's been a defensive analyst under Brent Venables. So, you know, it's not like it's just some, you know, random person. He's come through the ranks and is now taking that spot. And then Brandon Streeter was obviously the quarterback coach with Tony Elliott, and now just kind of moving into that position, which for him is more of a natural fit because at Richmond and Liberty, he was, you know, an OC and the quarterback's coach. So I don't think you're going to see too much change. One of the things Brandon has mentioned is tempo, adding a little more tempo to the offense. So maybe, you know, that will be one difference. Wes is a lot different than Brent in that obviously Brent Venables had to have a get-back guy. I don't think Wes is going to have that problem too much. He seems a little more just not as outwardly expressive. But as far as like the fundamentals and stuff, I mean, he's taken over the linebackers like Venables was. So you'll definitely see a lot of continuity. But as Wes said, you know, they've got some stuff that Venables doesn't know about, and he's got his own spin that he's going to put on things. So, you know, and same with Brandon Streeter, you know, as far as his experience and his background goes. So, you know, I expect to see them kind of pick up where those guys left off and kind of continue that tradition that Clemson has established over the past decade or so.
Alexis, some of that talk, I know when he made one of those hires originally is like, you know, too buddy or stay too much. There was a little complaining about him staying too in-house or maybe not going out and getting somebody with a bit more of a pedigree or track record. Has that kind of subsided? I know he sort of addressed any criticisms at one point by saying, hey, I've been here for, you know, a decade plus now. I think he'd trust my decisions at this point. Is that sort of, you know, dissipated?
Yeah, I think so. I think because you've had enough guys at different levels vouch for Wes. I mean, Bruce Arians literally had a quote in the press release about him, you know, and then Brandon Streeter obviously is someone who's known around the football world just because he worked with Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence. So, but yeah, I mean, that was the thing because we asked, you know, did you explore other candidates? You know, did you even interview anybody? But it sounds like, you know, Dabo's had this plan in place for a while. There's one thing I've learned about him, you know, in the almost year that I've been here, is that he's very intentional. And there's nothing ever, it doesn't seem like there's anything ever done without some kind of reason. So when he brought Wes in, you know, that was the plan. That's what he told Wes. The plan was that, you know, whenever Brent Venables retires or, you know, goes head coaching, like he would elevate to that position. I don't think he ever said anything like that to Brandon Streeter. But I mean, Brandon's only worked under two coaches in, I think, his whole career. So he's obviously a very loyal guy. And so when Tony did take that position at Virginia, you know, I honestly thought that if there was a coordinator position that they'd maybe go out for, it would be the OC, especially with Graham Harrell out there at one point. But they stuck with it. And so, you know, I think there was a little bit of question as far as like, okay, you know, you didn't even interview anybody else, but you know, I think at this point, Dabo's earned enough leeway to where you're just like, okay, well, let's just kind of see how this goes and kind of ride it out and see what happens this fall.
Who do you think their chief competition in the ACC will be this year?
So I think the biggest, I mean, obviously Pitt's still there. I would say Wake, but I mean, Wake had an outstanding year, but for whatever reason, Clemson just got their number because I was not expecting that game to go how it went this past season. NC State is obviously a big one. That's kind of a rivalry with a lot of on and off field things between the two coaches from our perspective, and then you know just that double overtime game there in Raleigh was really intense, and Clemson was very close to winning that one, which you know that loss is what basically knocked them out of the college football playoff and extending that 7-year streak. So yeah, I would say NC State, you got to put them in the mix. You got to put Pitt back in the mix, even though Kenny Pickett's gone. You know, Miami's kind of, you know, building their program there. They've got some things going and getting a lot of really good recruits. So, you know, if not this year, they'll definitely be in the mix at some point. But right now, yeah, I'd say I'd probably put, you know, Clemson, NC State, and Pitt up there. And, you Boston College did some good things too, and they get their quarterback back. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Now, at the same time, I still do think that for everybody else, Clemson is at the top, and that's the team to beat. But I think you're seeing that gap narrow, especially after last year when, they kind of showed a little bit of weakness, for lack of a better word, in terms of, showing maybe that they are a little beatable. But I mean, at the same time, they saw that, so they're going to make adjustments, and everybody else is going to make adjustments. So I think it'll be a lot of good competition in the conference this season.
Alexis, proud of you for what you're doing. Thanks for your time. Alexis Cubit covers Clemson and really more. She was at the women's Final Four as well, the state newspaper, and our update on Clemson. We'll hear from Cincinnati